What if you could not only be at peace with handling objections, but you could actually make friends with it? So I've trained hundreds of people on personal training sales. And one of the things that I've helped people do is become great at sales by really just be embracing the objection process and looking at it in a different way. So it's about getting comfortable with handling objections when people are going through that initial consultation or the sales process. And that's what we're going to do here today is we're going to make friends with overcoming objections or handling objections. Okay. So let me show you the rundown here in my slides of what we're going to talk about, and then we'll jump into it and start sharing some knowledge here. So what we're going to cover today in today's training is the mindset of objections or handling objections, what your role is in this process, getting the barriers off the road, and then we're going to go into a how-to of handling objections. Okay. So that's what we're covering here today. Now, the big key is this, is that, when I first started in the personal training industry was over 20 years ago, and it was a little bit different. It was not the age of information at that point in time. And so, coming out of the late 90s and into the early 2000s when I started, it was more of a high pressure situation, right? So there was disparity of information, meaning that us as the fitness professional, we had more information about pricing and things like that than the customer did. And so there was a disparity of information. They didn't know what the competition was charging. You couldn't just Google it. You would have to walk in and see other people and get the prices for them. And so that led to a lot of high pressure sales. It led to a lot of the sales techniques that were used back in the day. But that's not the life that we live in anymore, right? So we are in the age of information where you can Google 15 people's prices in a matter of 30 seconds of what are they charging, what are they asking for personal training or membership or things like that. There's a ton of information on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok about, personal training, free tips here and there. We are in the age of information. So we are in a very different time than when I first started in the industry. And the reason I bring that up is because we need to handle objections differently now. Okay. So gone are the days of high pressure sales. Clients or customers are just not willing to put up with that kind of stuff anymore. And we don't need to do it, right? Information is at a premium right now. So like I said, they can look at prices. They can look at competitors' prices. They can shop within 30 seconds, shop at a lot of different sources or resources. And so what it's really about overcoming objections today is about creating a relationship with people. Okay. So really creating a relationship and walking them through making the best decision possible. And that's how we need to look at it. So when it comes to our mindset around handling objections, that's the type of mindset that we want to have. Okay. So a lot of trainers will get themselves into trouble because of the way they look at overcoming objections. Okay. So people will tend to look at overcoming objections as rejection, right? So like if I try and overcome their objection and they still say no, then I've been rejected, right? Or they look at overcoming objections as, a money thing. Like I'm trying to get money out of this person, or money blueprints come into play. Scarcity blueprints, as someone had brought up before the call, and my blueprints as the person selling the product about like feeling bad about asking people for money, or money causes problems or things like that. So money blueprints come into play. So I think it's about money. Trainers tend to look at overcoming objections as a you versus me type of thing. Like it's me against the client, right? And they don't like that because they want to help people. So they feel like I'm here to help people. I'm here to help people win. And so creating this sort of you versus me thing makes them feel really guilty or bad about it. They also look at it as like a win-lose situation, right? So, I'm going to win the sale and they're going to lose the sale by signing up, right? And so these are all mindsets that create a problem for us. And so we need to look at overcoming objections in a different way. And this is how we make friends with overcoming objections is you have to look at overcoming objections that you and the client are actually on the same team. Okay. So it's not you versus me, it's you and me. Okay. So me and the client are on the same team, you and me. We're in this together. There's a problem ahead of us. The problem is that there's something that's stopping them from getting to their goals. Okay. And that something is a lack of knowledge, accountability, and problem solving, right? Those are the reasons why someone needs a trainer. And so we need to overcome those problems together as a unit and as a team. So it's not you versus me, it's you and me. And then the second place is trying to come up with a win-win, right? So it's not I win and you lose, or if you don't buy, you win and I lose. It's not you against me in the overcoming objection process, but it's creating a win-win outcome where it's like, I'm going to get a client that I really want to work with and I'm passionate about helping, and you're going to, get your goals and you're going to move forward on your health and fitness journey. So, we're doing this together. It's a win-win situation. Okay. And we have to look at ourselves as a coach, right? So instead of looking at ourselves as an adversary, right? Like someone that's against them, instead of looking at ourselves as someone's against them, we have to look at them as a coach. Okay. We're not an adversary to them and we're not a friend to them. Here's the way I say we're not a friend to them. The big difference between a friend and a coach is that a friend accepts you for who you are and a coach accepts you for who you could be, right? The best version of yourself. And that's really important to understand in all this because, a friend, if you tell a friend, oh, I'm going to quit smoking, and then you smoke the next day, they're like, don't worry about it. You can quit tomorrow. Versus a coach might hold you accountable to say, no, put it out. You said you were going to quit, right? So that's the big difference between a friend and a coach. So as we go through this process, we're not a friend. We're not against them. We're not the enemy, but we're a coach. We're on their side. And so if we look at ourselves as a coach, as someone that's trying to create a win-win situation, as you and me are on the same team trying to solve this problem, it really changed the way that we view objections. And it allows us to relax as the health and fitness pros when objections come up, and we don't get tense. We don't get worried. Our nervous system doesn't go into fight or flight mode, right? Because all of these things your client can tell. They see it in your eyes. They hear it in your tone of voice. Your voice might just crack a little bit or squeak a little bit as you're talking, right? So they're going to pick these things up even if you don't say them, okay? So we're going to get ourselves confident, and we're going to allow ourselves to relax and do the best job possible to help the client make the best decision and move forward with personal training by changing our mindset, okay? And then the last mindset we want to change around, we talked about rejection. Like if I offer you this product and I try and overcome your objections and sell you, and I fail to do so, then that's a rejection. And that says something about me personally. And so that's a misunderstanding, right? It's got nothing to do with you or even the product. A lot of times it has everything to do with the client and where they're at on their journey. So having the mindset to say, even if I do my best and they still say no, it's not about me. It's not about what I have to offer, but it's about where they're at on their journey. It's about them. And maybe just, viewing no as not yet. They're just not ready yet to move forward on this journey. Okay. So the big thing out of this that I want you to get today is your mindset around when objections come up in the sales process, you and the client are on the same team trying to solve a problem together. Okay. So that's a big piece of this, is that we need to understand that, because that's going to allow us to go into the process looking at things a different way. Think about, like, if you're going into battle, you're going to arm yourself, right? You're going to put your armor on, you're going to have a sword and a shield and all this stuff. And you're going to have maybe you're going to be afraid because, you think I could get hurt in this battle, or maybe you're going to get aggressive because you're like, I'm going to be the dominant one in this battle. Right. And so it puts you in a certain mindset. But if you go into a situation saying, this isn't going to be a battle, this is going to be fun, I'm going to hang out with some people, then, your attitude, your tone, your mindset, the way that you approach the situation dramatically changes. And that's what we want to do. is we want to come to it with, just confidence, good eye contact, good tone of voice. And we want to come to it with, the intent to really help people make the best decision possible. So that's the first thing that we have to do, is get our mindset right around handling objections. Okay. We're on the same team with the client. We're working together to find a solution to the problem, which is they have a goal and there's a knowledge gap for them reaching that goal. Okay. And so that's the first thing I want you to take away from this process, and see if you can change the way that you view objections, because that's what you're really there to do, right? So someone wants a goal. That's why they're sitting in front of you, and they want to lose weight. They want to gain muscle. They want to be better athletics, or, just have better energy, or whatever their goal is. They have a health and fitness goal. And the things that are blocking them, there's a knowledge gap. There's an accountability issue. Most people are not accountable unless there's a person to be accountable to. So we've talked about on past calls that accountability goes up 80% when you're accountable to a real person. So results go up 80% when you're accountable to a person instead of like a journal or an app. And then there's a problem solving issue, right? So they can't problem solve for themselves without someone else having an objective view on it. So those are the problems that are in the way. And we're there to help them work through those problems and make a great decision so that they are successful and reach their health and fitness goals. And if we can look at it that way, I think we'll have a lot better understanding as we go into it. So hopefully that makes sense. But that's the first thing that we want to do, is make friends with overcoming objections and view ourselves as a coach and view ourselves as a problem solver, not as a salesperson and not as an adversary. Okay. So think about tennis as an example. So when you go into the tennis match, when you hit the ball to someone, they're going to hit it back. So when they swing the racket and hit it back, you're getting ready, right? Because you're like, okay, where are they going to hit it? And so you're putting your defenses up. You're getting ready. I don't want the client to feel that way when they're going through objections with me. I want them to feel like we're on the same team. We're playing a doubles match. It's me and you against the computer. Right. So me and you are going to hit the ball to the computer, and we're going to find out a way around this problem together. Okay. Because I don't want them to have their defenses up and be ready to like play back against me in tennis. We're going to play on the same side here. Okay. So that's rule number one of becoming friends with objections and the best ways to handle objections. So we're going to go into the next piece here, and that's going to be your role in this process. Okay. So let's take a look at, you're the fit pro, you're presenting options to someone. What's your role in this process of overcoming objections? Okay. So your role is to A, ask questions, B, listen, and then C, help problem solve. Okay. That's your role in this. So we're not here to use like sales techniques. We're not here to trick anyone or put pressure on anyone. These are specifically the roles that we're here to fulfill as we go through this process with someone. Okay. So if we look at this process, we say, okay, the first thing is about asking questions. Okay. So if there's an objection that comes up, we want to understand this better, right? So we want to ask a lot of questions as we go through this process. And we want to have a curious mindset, or approach everything with curiosity. So as an example, it doesn't matter what the client says. My goal is to understand what they're saying, right? And have an attitude of curiosity, like, I wonder why they said that. Like, and you don't know unless you ask. Unless it's verbalized in the conversation, we don't want to make any assumptions during this process. So we make assumptions in our head, and we might say, well, I just like, oh, this person probably can't afford it, or they're probably going to say they need to ask their spouse, or, they probably think they can do it on their own. Again, unless it's verbalized during the actual sales conversation, it doesn't count. So my job is to ask questions to have people actually verbalize their thoughts, what's going on. So if they say it's too expensive, I want to understand what makes them say that it's expensive. Like, what do they think is expensive? Expensive compared to what, right? So these are some of the questions I could ask, right? Or if they say, I'm going to try it on my own. Well, what are they going to try on their own? How are they going to try it on their own, right? So I want to understand. So I'm approaching everything with curiosity, because unless they actually verbalize it, it doesn't count, and I can't make any assumptions. And then step number 2 here is listening, okay? So after I ask my question, I close my mouth. So I'm just there to listen and really understand what they're saying. And in this process, silence is our friend. Okay. So we need to really understand that if we're talking, people are going to keep their answers really short because we're dominating the conversation. But if we create lots of silent spots in the conversation of overcoming objections, it gives them not only the opportunity, but it encourages them to talk. Think about if you're out with for coffee with a friend. You're sitting at the coffee table, you're just silently sitting there enjoying your coffee. They feel almost obliged to say something because nobody's talking, right? It's uncomfortable that nobody's talking. So they say something. So the more that you're quiet, the more that the client is going to verbalize something. And more that they verbalize, the more you're going to get an insight to know what is going on in their head and where are they at in this process. So silence is your friend, right? So this is not just a rule of thumb for presenting the price. It's a good rule of thumb for presenting the price, but it's also a rule of thumb after we ask any question, right? So if I put the price out there and I say, so Anthony, this is the program here and it's going to be $2,000. Let's get you started. And this is the part where I'm just going to be quiet until Anthony talks. That's it. I'm just going to look at him. I'm going to smile at him. He's my friend. And I'm going to wait until he talks, no matter how uncomfortable that is. That's important. Okay. I have to be comfortable in the silence. So as the person in this role, as the coach, you need to get comfortable in the silence. So that's a very common technique coached and taught that I believe in on price presentation or when asking for the order. But we also want to do that when we're asking other questions. Okay. We want to let the client answer what we're asking, right? So if they say, I got to talk to my spouse, and I might ask them, okay, fair enough. I get that. But, what do you think your spouse might say, or what might their concerns be? And then I'm going to be pausing and I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to allow them to verbalize. This is their turn to talk and my turn to listen. So I have to get comfortable just being silent and giving them space to communicate and get information out into the conversation. And then number 3 is help problem solve. So whatever comes out of their mouth next, whether it's a price objection, whether they're unsure if it's going to work or they're not ready to get started, now I'm going to help them problem solve. Now that they've verbalized their point of view, my goal is to solve the problem. It's not to overcome the objection. It's not to conquer, but it's really to be on their team and solve this problem, right? So I want to, work together with them and say, okay, so I get it now. Your spouse may be concerned about this program. That's what you're saying to me about the cost of this program. And so, you really want to get to this goal XYZ. How might we address that together? We're sitting here together, if me and you put our heads together, then, maybe we could think of some ways that might not be as big of an issue anymore. And we're going to overcome the challenge together as a team. And I can offer up some solutions at this point in time, but I have to wait and listen till I really feel like I understand what's going on with them. Okay. So that's your role in it. And we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about how to do this. But I really just want health and fitness pros, I want personal trainers to understand, like, this is it. This is what you're doing. You're not here to do sales tricks. You're not here to put pressure on people. You're here to just simply do those 3 things. Ask a lot of questions, do a lot of listening, create a lot of space for the client to talk, and be a problem solver, help offer solutions. That's your role in all this. And the reason I say it that way is because sometimes personal trainers or health and fitness pros, they feel bad about selling, right? They feel guilty, like they're doing something wrong. And if you look at they look at people that overcome objections. When that word comes up, a lot of people get fear into them because they're like, well, I have to pressure people or I have to, conquer these objections. It's like, no, this is your job here. Just ask some questions, listen, create some space, and be there to offer solutions that might possibly solve these problems. So when you tell fitness pros that, when I trained, like I said, hundreds, maybe even thousands of trainers on how to sell. When I trained them and I said, this is your job, do you think you could do that? They felt a lot more comfortable about it. They're like, yeah, I can do that. I can solve some problems and listen to people. Great. That's all I'm asking you to do when you sit in front of someone. Okay. they feel better about it. And so they're able to go through the process a lot easier. Okay. So we have first, our mindset about what handling objections is. So we talked about that. And then we got our role in this situation. And again, because we're a coach and we're on the same team as the client, I like to do everything I can in a sales conversation to make that very clear and evident. What does that mean? It means instead of being across the table from someone, I sit beside them. So I will actually put my chair on the same side of the table as them. Okay. Because I want them to know we're a team. So how can I position my body that says we're not against each other, we're on the same side? So I put my chair beside them and we look at the problem together. I do it with my body language. I position towards them. I keep my body language open. I keep my tone of voice, right? So sometimes, without knowing, our voice can get more aggressive, or it can be more, feigning or weak, right? We don't even mean to do this. But what I try and do when I'm in a sales conversation is I use the tone of voice of someone that's there to help, a helper. So I use language and tone of voice that's like, hey, I'm here to help. I'm on your side. That's it. And it's kind of this voice right here that I'm using right now. It's just like, I'm here to help you move past this. Let's get to this goal together, right? So I'm not in there with a commanding voice or authoritative voice. I'm like, we're solving a problem together. So I'm using all these different cues: tone of voice, body language, where I have my chair, where I position myself to get myself on the same team as the client. So that's part of the process of making them feel like we're on the same team. Okay. So let's talk about the next piece. We're going to start getting tactical now on this. The first thing to overcoming objections well is to get barriers off the road. So if we want to drive down this road of getting them to their goals, let's make sure there's no barriers in the way. What are these barriers? These are just the most common objections that we face all the time, right? So if we know that these are the things that are going to come up, then I like to get them off the road before we even present price. Okay, so let's go over these together here. So before I get the price out on the table, the barriers I'm gonna try and get off the road are these three things. Time, is this going to work for them? And spouse or other person. Okay. So these are the most common objections in personal training. If you're selling something else, it might be different, but these are the most common objections in personal training. Is the time, I don't have the time to do this, or I'm busy, or I don't know if I can book appointments or whatever. And then, is this actually going to work? I'm going to try it on my own, or I'm not sure that I can do this, or it'll actually get me the result. And the last one is like, I got to talk to my wife, or I got to talk to my dad, or whatever. I got to talk to someone else. Okay. So before I even get the price out there, before I say, hey, this is what it is, I want to get these three things off the table first. Okay. So these are the three things we're going to work on first. So how would we do that together? Well, as I'm about to move into my price presentation, I'm simply going to ask some questions that confirm these three things. Okay. So I've probably done some sort of consult with them up to this point in time, whether that's live in person or it's via Zoom or whatever. I've spent some time with them and understood their goals. And that's how we got to the point of me showing them a program or offering them something. And so the first thing I'm going to ask them is about time, and say, okay, Kevin, before we get into the different types of programs and options we have, earlier when we were talking, you said you were going to come about 3 days a week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday mornings. Is that something you're still comfortable, committed to reach your goals? Because right now it's about the goal. It's not about the money. It's not about the program. It's just about showing up for himself. And he's going to probably say, yeah, I can do that. Right. Or whatever he told me before. He said he was going to come twice a week for an hour. Right. I'll just reconfirm that. So you're still committed to coming in twice a week for an hour to reach your goals and make sure that this happens. And he's probably going to say yes. How do I know he's going to say yes? Well, he probably told me that about 30 minutes ago, the exact same thing. So I'm just using the same language I used then to make sure that he's still on board with that. Okay. So that's time. He's going to show up. Okay. And then I'm going to say, okay, so based on everything that we covered today, Kevin, like we went on the floor, we did your assessment, everything we covered today, can you see how the plan that I'm talking about is going to make sure that you get these results the best way possible, right? So this is, does it work, right? Now's his opportunity to say, well, I'm not sure that it's going to work for me because whatever, I have this rare genetic disorder, or I'm not good at sticking to programs or whatever. Now's the time for him to bring that up and for me to address it when price isn't on the table yet. Okay. A lot of the times I'm getting just because I've done a good job. I've done an assessment with them. I've taken them on the floor. I've showed them things. I've shown them programs. This is what I'm going to do with you. I've made a periodization or some sort of recommendation for them. So by this time, most of the time I'm getting like, yeah, I understand that, this program is probably the best way for me to reach those goals. Okay. That's most of the time. Maybe a small percentage of the time, 10, 15% of the time, you'll get an objection here. And somebody will say, well, like I said, I'm not sure it's going to work for me because XYZ. So maybe they're on medication that alters their hormones and they don't think that this can apply to them. Or maybe, they have some other barrier that I don't know about, but it's great to have it out now so we can address it together. Okay. So let's say Kevin says, well, I'm taking these drugs and, they really affect my ability to build muscle. And so I don't think the program is going to work for me. So now is my opportunity to address that by showing them that I've helped people like him before. I say, well, thank you for sharing that, Kevin. That makes, a lot of sense that you would bring that up. I appreciate that. And so, I've actually worked with people like you before that were on that same medication and I've helped them build muscle. And, we did it with this exact plan. We just made a few tweaks on the nutrition to increase your calories a little bit or whatever. However, I would help get around that issue, right? Let's say, for example, there's a woman and she's like, well, I have thyroid problems, so I have trouble losing weight or whatever. It's like, great. I really appreciate you bringing that up. I'm glad you brought it up. Well, with this exact plan, I've actually helped people with you with that. And this is how I did it. And, maybe we altered the nutrition, maybe we used a different style of workout, but I would address whatever concern they're bringing to the table. And then I would reconfirm with them. So based on that one adjustment that I'm going to increase your calories and, whatever, can you see how this is going to work for you? And then he's like, okay, yeah, based on that. So he's basically brought up a concern why he doesn't think the program might work. I've addressed that concern and I'm reconfirming that now he believes it'll work based on the adjustments I'm willing to make for his unique situation. Okay. And so those situations can vary, but those are usually the most common things that come up. It's just like, they feel like maybe it won't work for them for various reasons. And we just have to address that and what adjustments we will make. Let them know I'm listening to you. I'm going to customize your program by making this 1, 2, 3 tweaks. So it's catered to Kevin or to that exact person. And then once they hear that you're not just treating them as a cookie cutter person, but you're saying, yes, I will account for that. Yes, I will adjust for that and make these specific changes. They're usually pretty good about saying, okay, yeah, I get that. That makes sense. And they're willing to say, yes, this will work for me. So that's number 2. Okay. And then number 3 is the decision maker. So we covered time. You're willing to show up. We covered, does it work based on the plan, the things we talked about? Can you see how this is going to get you to result XYZ, which is lose weight, build muscle, whatever. Right. And then the third piece is the decision maker. Okay. So in this, it's most commonly to get a spouse objection, which is a very tough objection to overcome, right? In general. And I would usually say, so earlier you talked about, your husband is aware that you've come in today and is your husband supportive of you taking action on your goals? That's usually the way I phrase it. So, I might say to Cindy, so Cindy, you mentioned earlier that your husband knows that you're coming to the gym to meet with me today. Is your husband supportive of you taking action on your goals? Okay. And, most of the time, again, on this one, they'll say, yeah, they're very supportive. And they phrase it that way for a reason. I want them to know, like, I'm not supportive of your goals, supportive of you taking action on your goals. I want them to know that now's the time, today's the day to do something about it. So I use the phrase taking action on your goals is a very specific phrase that I want you to consider, because someone can say, well, they're supportive of my goals, but they don't want me to do anything, do this or do that. So it's like, no, supportive of you taking action. That's what I want to get across them, is them taking action on. Now, sometimes on this one, I get, people will say, well, they're supportive, but, it depends on what it costs, because they're now assuming that I'm going to lay out a cost for them, which I am. And they say, well, they're supportive, but they're, that depends what it costs, right? And then I'm not going to address that directly at this point in time, but what I am going to say is that, okay, perfect. Well, I appreciate you being honest and bringing that up. Now, besides the cost of taking action, is there anything else that they might be concerned with? Well, no, it's just mainly the cost. Okay, fair enough, right? And now I'm going to go into, saying, either handling the objection or going into the price of it because they don't know what it costs. I said, well, right now we don't know what it costs, and it might be something that, they're perfectly okay with. So why don't we review that right now? And then I will do my price presentation. Okay. So when I do get the spouse objection, or, it could be someone's dad, right? Could be dealing with a younger client. It's like, well, I got to talk to my mom and dad. Okay, perfect. Are they supportive of you taking action on your goals? Yeah, they're supportive of it, but it depends what it costs. Okay, great. Well, that makes sense. Well, let's go over what it costs today so we can, make the best possible decision. And I'm going to go into my price presentation, and I know that price piece is going to be the main objection that I have to face. But this is what we do in terms of like getting these objections off the table or barriers out of the road before we actually show our price. Because what I'm trying to avoid is that, I show a price presentation and then people start throwing out what we call these like surface level or objections or distractors, right? So these are distractors where they're like, well, I don't have time to come, or I can't book appointments, or, I'm not sure that it's going to work because of this or this. And that'll often come up after the price is out because they don't actually have a good objection. So they just throw these distractors out. So my goal is to say, like, look, let's not deal with any of these distractors or these barriers. Let's get them off the road, and then we can have an actual conversation about what's stopping you from getting started here today. Okay. And so that's why I lead into my price presentation for that. Usually it's very simple. Just kind of goes like this. So I would basically go into it and I'd say, okay, so Krista, you talked about that you're really excited about these goals. And so you said you were going to show up 2 times a week for an hour. Are you still committed to doing that to reach your goals? Yeah, I'm committed. Okay, great. And so based on the program we went over today, can you see how this is going to be the best way for you to get your goal of X, Y, Z? Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. And so, you said your husband knew you were coming down today. Is your husband supportive of you taking action in order to achieve these goals? Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. Done. And I move into my price presentation. Okay. So I'm just looking for those 3 confirmations, and then I move into my price presentation. But that way, if anything does come up, I can handle it before price gets on the table, because it's a different conversation before and after the price gets out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my price presentation. I'm not going to get into that today because we did talk about that on another call, but I'm going to do whatever my normal price presentation is to show options. Okay. And if you want to look at that information, there's another video on my YouTube channel there that covers about like how do you present price and what's the best way to do that. All right. So now let's say we've presented price, I've shown options, and an objection has come up. Any objection has come up. So how do we handle these objections? There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. I tend not to do scripts with people, but I tend to show people how to think about it and instead, I've done a lot of scripts. It can be helpful to practice scripts for sure. But I also don't want people that I train to sound like robots where they're like, just like they say this, you say that. I want it to be a natural conversation. So we just have to have a framework for thinking about when an objection comes out, what are the steps that I need to go through for handling this, rather than what are the exact things that I should be saying. I want you to handle it like you. And you get better at the words with practice over time. Okay. And so that's just important to understand. Okay. So let's pop up this slide here that talks about the how-to when an objection comes up on the table. How do we handle that? So this is the 5 steps that I use to overcome objections. Okay. So step number 1 is we want to seek to understand their position. Okay. So that's just really about, why I wonder why they're saying that. Okay. I wonder where this is coming from, or what is their thought process happening in the background right now. So first I want to seek to understand. Second step is I want to isolate that there's nothing else that's going to jump into the equation. Okay. Then I'm going to ask a question that's going to help them like clarify their objection or clarify their point of view. Then we're going to work on solutions to the problem together. So I'm going to offer some solutions, or I'm going to help them come up with some solutions to the problem. I'm going to reinforce my program and ask for the order again. Okay. So these are the 5 steps that I use. And so there's a lot of like methodologies for overcoming objections. They all have like some elements of these steps in them. I've used these steps for 20 years and closed millions of dollars in personal training sales using these steps without having to resort to like sales tricks or pressure sales or things like that. But it's just about being on the same team as the client and finding out how we can get to solutions. So hopefully these steps will help you too. Now let's make these steps practical, okay? So you've got the 5 steps there that we want to do and say, okay, well, I get it. How's it work, right? And there's other things you could throw into the mix. Perhaps you've heard of the feel, felt, found method, right? So it's like someone gives you an objection. You say, I understand how you feel. I've worked with other people that have felt the same way. And what they found is that, when they got started, it was worth it, the investment, right? So that's an example of another methodology that people use. I can throw elements of feel, felt, found into my 5 steps, right? I just don't like doing like the feel, felt, found because it's the exact same thing every time. I feel, I understand, they felt, and then they found, right? It gets a little bit repetitive and people kind of know it. It's been used for a long time. So they'll even call you out on it. Okay. So I use these steps and I say, okay, seek to understand. So an objection comes out on the table. Okay. Whatever that objection is, my friend's going to help me work out. So let's say I'm a personal trainer. I'm trying to get you signed up for training. And they say, my friends, I appreciate the program and it's going to work, but I'm going to try it on my own. I'm going to start with my friend. Okay. So the first step is to seek to understand. So I want to make them feel understood. And I also want to seek to understand their point of view. So I'm going to say, well, that's fantastic that you have a friend here at the gym to help you out. Right. And it's always better, like motivation's higher when you can work out with other friends. They keep you accountable with each other. That's fantastic. So help me understand your friend and the help they're going to provide for you. Is your friend like a personal trainer? Right. So that's the first thing I want to understand. Like, what's this friend's background? Do they have the ability to help them? Right. And say, okay, are you guys going to come on the same days all the time? Or like, what kind of support are they going to be able to provide for you? Right? Do you guys have the same body type? Are you working on the same goal? Right? Are they just getting started too? Because you're just getting started. You haven't worked out in 2 years. And so, maybe their body at a different point. Right? So I just want to understand, like, why would they say this and why would they think their friend can help them? So I'm seeking to understand. So I'm asking clarifying questions. And then again, like I said earlier in the presentation, I'm being quiet and I'm letting them talk. Okay. So tell me a little bit about this friend that's going to help you out. And I'm going to see what they say. I'm just going to let them talk about it. And then I'll ask a few questions here and there, like, what's their experience? Are they at the same point? Whatever. So I'm just seeking to understand. I'm not yet trying to overcome the objection or solve the problem. I just want to understand. Okay. And, when you do that and you're quiet and you're comfortable asking a lot of questions and being quiet and letting the client talk, clients can tell. What do most people do is, they'll say, oh, my friend's going to help me. Right. And then the salesperson jumps in right away. Well, your friend's not a trainer, right? So how could they help you? And da 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 da. So, they're jumping in right away. And again, with the game of tennis, that's what they expect you to do. They're expecting you to hit the ball back to them, right? So instead of jumping in right away, trying to overcome the objection, I just sit back and just try and understand it a little better. And it's like, okay, tell me about that. Right? And see what they say. Then the next thing I'm going to do, so that's step number 1, seek to understand without trying to overcome it. Step number 2 is isolate. Okay. Makes sense. So, what I'm understanding from you here, Anthony, is that you've got this friend and they're not a trainer, but they've been working out for a while. And, although their body's a little bit different, they're going to help you along. They're going to meet up with you once a week and give you a program or something like that. Is that what you're saying? And he's going to say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. So, besides this friend helping you out, is there any other reason why you wouldn't get started with this program? So I'm isolating. That's step number 2. I want to know, are there other things on the table? Okay. So I want to isolate it to, this is the only reason why they wouldn't get started. It helps me. It doesn't always work, but it more often than not works. Helps me make sure that they're not going to throw out 5 other objections after I deal with this objection. I'm going to isolate this objection. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't get started with the program besides this thing that we're talking about? And then they say no. Okay. So now I'm going to start asking them questions that is going to put to light, what might be happening here or what the problem might be. Okay. So, as an example, I could ask them and say, okay, so, it's really great that you have this friend that's going to motivate you. My concern is that the friend isn't a professional, right? And so would you let this friend, be your dentist? Or, would you let a friend that's, works at a bank fix your car? And they're going to say no to those things, obviously. I say, okay, can you see my concern that you have a friend that's not a professional? You said these goals are, really important for you. They're 9 out of 10 important, that you really want to get there. Do you really want to put it in the chance that you might not get there from this friend's help? Right? So that's a question I could ask. And again, I'm not trying to say that they can't help them. I'm trying to let them understand through their own idea that this might not be the best solutions. I'm asking instead of telling. Okay. So the problem is we get into telling and saying your friend can't help you. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask the question. Do you think someone that, does whatever for a living can help you get there? And if they might not be able to help you get there, is that something you're willing to risk when this is really important for you? Okay. So I'm asking questions about it, right? I'm going to ask questions about, okay, so your friend's been working out for 2 years and you're just getting started. Is it possible you guys might need to work on different programs? Because we talked about that periodization thing and they're 2 years into it and you're on day 1, right? And what do you think would happen if you did someone's program that was already working out for 2 years when you're on day 1? Do you think that might have some negative consequences? So again, I'm on their team just trying to get the problems to light here because that is a real problem, right? I can't train like someone that's been training for years if it's my first day. That just doesn't make any sense, right? So I know it doesn't make sense. The reason I know is because I know that the best thing to do is to get a personal trainer, right? So I know that. The reason I know that is because a personal trainer knows how to reach the goals. They hold you accountable and they problem solve. The only reason not to get a personal trainer is because it costs money, right? Everything else, it makes sense to get a personal trainer. And I know that. So I'm just asking questions to clarify, where are we missing here, right? So that's my goal in these questions. What step number 3 is asking. I'm asking questions to help bring to light some of the things that they cannot see. It's called making the invisible visible. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to do. So as an example, what's invisible for this person right now is that their friend is at a different stage than them, that their friend is not a professional, that their friend might be doing a program that's way different than what they want if they don't have the same goals in body. And that their friend might not be able to come all the days that they're coming together. Whatever the challenges are with working out with a friend, I'm going to bring them to light through asking questions because it makes sense to work with a professional. And so I want to ask questions that bring these problems to light. Okay. So then I do that. Now I'm going to offer solutions. Okay. So that's step number 4, offer solutions. And then I'll say, okay, because your friend has been working out for 2 years and you're at a different place and they're not a professional and it's something new. Wouldn't maybe it make sense to work with a trainer 1 day a week, get your program, and then work out together and come to the gym together with your friend, right? For motivation. So you have your program, they have theirs, but you guys come, you use the steam room together, you high five, you go for a shake, and you're motivated and you're having fun, but you're doing the best thing for you. Wouldn't that make more sense? Right? So I'm offering a solution. I'm basically saying, I'm not telling you not to work out with your friend, but I'm saying 1 day a week, get your program, get your technique, and then use your friend for motivation. You guys motivate each other, but do the right thing for you. So you make sure you get results, right? Now I'm going to reinforce the program. Okay. So now I'm step number 5. I've offered a solution. Now I'm going to reinforce the program. So the program that I'm recommending to you that I recommended, we can work together 1 day a week for an hour. I'm going to customize your program. I'm going to show you everything that you need to do. And, I'm going to do it in a way that you can work out with your friend the other days a week. And all you have to do is check off the exercises, write down what you did, and make sure you can get it. So what do you say? Why don't we get you started on this program? I'm going to ask for the order. Okay. So that's step number 5. Reinforce the program, ask for the order. Okay. So that's what I'm working on here is through the steps. So let me just recap that exact situation, and then we can get into other situations and make this really practical. But I just want to show you how I use those steps. Okay. So I presented the price and the person said, my friend's going to help me. Okay. So first I seek to understand. I ask questions about why would they say that? What's going on with this in their mind about this situation? So I'm asking about, who is the friend? What's their background? Have they been working out? Are they new? Whatever, So I'm going to find out about the situation. Then I'm going to isolate. Besides, the fact that you're going to work out with your friend, is there any other reason why you wouldn't do this program? No, it's just because I want to be with my friend. Okay, great. So I did step number 2. Number 3, I'm going to ask questions to bring the invisible and make it visible. You think it's possible that, your friend's been working out for 2 years and that you're on day 1, you might have need to be on different programs. Can you see how, they have a goal of building 20 pounds of muscle and you're trying to lose fat and get energy. And so that might be different exercises and things, I'm going to bring this to light. Then I'm going to offer solutions. Okay. Because of all this stuff that we just talked about, what we can do is perhaps work with me 1 day a week and then work out with your friend following your program the other days. That way you're there. You guys can come to the gym together, leave together, right? You can motivate each other, maybe do a little bit of cardio together and have fun, but you're doing the right thing for your body. So I offered a solution. Now reinforce the program and ask for the order. So what I can do is I can customize this program that we just talked about over the next 16 weeks and make sure that the workouts, we work together 1 day a week and the other days you're working out with your friend, and it's easy to follow. And all you have to do is check off what you're doing and you are going to get to the result of X, Y, Z. What do you say? Why don't we get you started on this? And I'm going to ask for the order. So that's how you do that in the 5 steps. Okay. So I'm going to use those same 5 steps for any objection that comes out, but we're just going to change the types of questions we're asking and the things that we're talking about, because again, that's why I don't want to teach scripts. I want to teach you how to think about it, because there's just a lot of different things that you could chat about with this client when you're trying to understand their point of view and trying to offer alternative points of view. We're working together on the problem. The problem is this. They have a knowledge gap to get to their goals. And if they get help from their friend, the friend might provide the wrong knowledge and they might fail and they might blame themselves because they're like, I didn't do a good job. It's like, no, your friend gave you the wrong information. It's not your fault, but they didn't know that, right? So I have to bring that to light. That's a problem that we need to overcome together as a team so that they understand, even if they decide to walk out of the sales conversation and work with a friend, at least they know, at least it's out there, it's visible that this isn't the best way. And then if they try a different way, they can be successful. Okay. I just want to make sure that everything's on the table and they understand and make an informed decision. And that's what I talked about at the beginning of this. It's not about selling people or tricking people. It's about helping people make the best possible decision. So if I give them all the information and I let them know that their friend might not be the best person to help them, and they say, that's okay, I'm willing to risk failing because I want to be with my friend, I'm okay with that. Right? I'm okay with that. At least they made an informed decision, understanding that that might not be the best way. Okay. So now we take the same method and we apply it to any kind of objection that we're going to get. Okay. So someone might say, it's the cost, right? Or, I'm going to wait. Give me 30 days. Let me get started. Or I'm going to try it on my own for a while. Right? Or whatever. It doesn't matter what the objection is. We use the same thing, right? So let's say they say, for example, it's like, yeah, I've got to think about it. Okay. So step number 1 is seek to understand. Fair enough. It's a big decision. So I can respect the fact that you want to think about it. So, just so I can make sure that you have all the information that you need in order to make a good decision, what elements are you unsure of, or what do you want to mull over in your head? right? So I want to know what they want to think about. Okay. And they're going to say, well, it's a lot of money and I don't know if I can commit to paying. Okay, fair enough. So, um, when you say it's a lot of money, are you looking at the total cost or are you looking at the biweekly investment that I showed you there? Well, it's more the total cost. Okay, fair enough. I get that. And so right now I'm just seeking to understand and clarifying. So right now I've got them, they want to think about it. It's the cost and it's the total cost of the program, the $5,000 or whatever that's bothering. I say, okay, fair enough. I get it. And so, so I'm guessing because you're saying this cost that right now that you don't have that money that to pay for this program. No, I don't have that right now. Okay, fair. Right. Or maybe they say, yeah, I have it, but I don't know if I want to spend it. Right. So at least I'm understanding their situation. Right. That's the first part. I got to understand. I'm going to isolate. I'm going to say, so I've got the fact that right now, like the total cost is something you don't have right now and you're a little concerned. And so you want to think about it. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else besides that would hold you back from getting started on this program today and moving towards your goal of X, Y, Z? No, that's about it. Okay. I've done step number 2. I'm going to ask. Okay. So I had mentioned to you that before that I could break this up into biweekly payments. And so the biweekly payment is whatever, $200 every couple of weeks. Okay. And so, do you have $200 that you could set aside for this over the next 2 weeks? Right? Because now we're not looking at the total cost anymore. Now we're looking at $200. Well, yeah. Okay. So you have $200. So, does it make sense to look at the total cost or does it make more sense to just perhaps look at what it might cost you every couple of weeks off your paycheck, right? Or out of your savings? What do you think makes more sense? Yeah, I guess it kind of makes more sense to look at, what I have to put aside for it every couple of weeks. Okay, fair. And so, I mean, I'm not here to judge your budget, but are there things that are not as important as your health and fitness that you might be able to, that you're spending money on right now that you might say, hey, I'm going to move that money over to somewhere else. That's up to you. It's your goal, right? But is that the case with you? Right. And they're going to say, yeah, I don't know. Like maybe they'll say, yeah, I do this thing and I got to stop doing it. Or maybe they won't. They say, I'm not really sure. Okay, fair enough. Well, I think it comes down to more of a priority because you just said that you could set aside this money if you really wanted to. So now it comes down to just, do you want to? Is this a priority? And so, you had told me that you tried these 5 other things, before, and you still haven't got the goal. And so what's been the cost of that, of not achieving the goal over the last couple of years? Right. And so we'll talk about that. Let's bring the invisible and make it visible. Like, the missed days of work, have they, not been enjoying their life as much as they could? Have they not felt the way they want to feel? Have they delayed doing things they want to do? I don't know, but there's a cost to not have achieved the goal. So they say, okay, well, what might be the cost if you don't get started today over the next 6 months or a year? Right? Not the financial cost, but the quality of life cost. And let's make that invisible visible. Now I can offer a solution, right? Because I've explored making the invisible visible. And now I can offer solutions. And my solution might be, okay, well, let's prioritize this, this $200. Let's not worry about the total cost. Let's prioritize the $200 every 2 weeks. Let's make sure you set it aside. And then anything else that you have left over, you can put towards all these other things in your life that you love doing. And make the commitment to achieving the goal. Now, step 5, reinforce the program and ask for the order. Because if you set aside this $200, not only are you going to overcome the cost of waiting that they did before, like, not having the quality of life, not having the energy, not doing the things they want to do, but you will start having desired outcomes that we talked about during their goal setting. You will start having whatever it is, right? More energy. You'll start being able to, do the things you love again on weekends or whatever it is we talked about during their goal setting. So why don't we just get you started on this and let's commit to making you the best version of yourself and ask for the order again. So that's how you might handle an objection like that cost piece. Now, is it going to go that way every single time? Of course not. Right. And that's why I don't want to teach you scripts, because you have to be responsive to what people are saying. And if you learn a script and they say something slightly different, then you're going to get stuck. I rather teach you, here's the steps, here's the way to think about it. And then what you need to do is just practice. The more situations you're in and the more you practice handling those different types of situations, the better you're going to get at. One thing that I want to encourage you to do is this. It makes sense to get personal training. Okay. They're a professional. They know how to reach the goal, right? They're going to problem solve. They're going to hold you accountable. This makes sense. So whatever objection they bring up, you're just going to ask questions about why this doesn't make sense. Why the objection doesn't make sense, right? Because the only objection that makes sense is that it's not important enough for me to spend this much money on it. That's it. That's the only objection that makes sense, right? So anything other than that doesn't make sense. And so that's what we're going to do is we're going to explore, why doesn't this make sense? And what does make sense? How can we go around this problem in order to make it make sense? And that's the truth of it, is because like it makes sense to work with a professional. And so the only thing that doesn't make sense is or makes sense that to not do it is, it's not important enough. I don't want to spend the money on this because it's okay if I don't reach that goal. And usually that's not what our clients say to us. And so until we get that answer, we want to explore all the different options. Okay. So this is how we handle objections in a methodical way. So I just want to recap and then we can go into some specific stuff. I know some people put some stuff in the chat that we'll get to, but I just want to recap first. So we started handling objections with the first thing is our mindset. It's not you against them. It's not, about being personally rejected. It's not about, using sales tricks or tactics. It's about you being on the same team as the client and helping them like a coach would to fulfill their best and highest potential. Okay. Challenging them like a coach would to do the best thing for them. Okay. So that's the mindset. And then the second piece is that what's your role in all this? You're not a salesman. You're not a pressure salesperson. You don't have to trick people. Your role is this. Your role is to ask questions, to create space and listen and allow them to really talk and explore their points of views and problem solve with them to find solutions to the best way to get to the results. That's it. That's your role in all this. And if you feel comfortable doing those three things, then you can overcome objections really, really well. Okay. And get people started. Then we get into the barriers. We need to overcome these three barriers because they always come up. So the three barriers are time. Does this thing actually work for me? And making them the decision maker. And we just ask, right? We ask the three questions. You said you were going to commit the time. Are you still able to do that? Yes. Okay. Do you see how what I showed you today is going to work for you and get you the goal of XYZ? Yes. And it's like, is your spouse or whoever supportive of you taking action on this today? Yes. Okay, great. Now I can show the price. I'm going to show the price. I'm going to keep my mouth closed and I'm going to provide some silence for them to think and for them to say something and explore their opinions. And then we get into our anything else but a yes is an objection. An objection isn't a no. It's here's a problem that I see. Let's solve it together. And then we go through our framework for overcoming objections, which is first seeking to understand and have them feel understood. Okay. Number two, isolating that this is the only objection. This is the only problem. Three, ask questions to make the invisible visible. Four, offer solutions to around the problem, past the problem. And five, reinforce the program and ask for the order again. So we're going to follow those 5 steps, whatever we get in terms of objections. Okay. So let's get into the weeds here. So Christine brought up earlier, talked about changing mindset around money and the economy. There's a lot of fear-based concerns in the news, keeping people from investing. So that is a good one right now in this time, and it's come up at other times as an example. So, politics and economy and news and stuff like that, they prey on people's fears, right? And when people get into fear, they tend to freeze in terms of like what they're doing, right? Even though it doesn't make sense. Like an example being is like a lot of people pull their money out of stocks when the economy is dropping And, the biggest experts in the world, like a Warren Buffett will tell you that's the time to buy, not to pull out. Like when the stocks are dropping, Warren Buffett says buy, right? But everybody pulls it out because they're afraid of what's going to happen, right? And so there is that sort of like when people are in fear mode, they're not really ready to invest, whether it's invest in financially in their future or invest in their physical health, right? So the answer to that question is getting them out of fear mode around this, right? Like the reality of it is like, yeah, there's things going on in the world, but there's always things going on in the world, right? Like even when we're not under like going through this thing with tariffs or political uncertainty, like who's going to be the next prime minister and what's Trump going to do next and all that kind of stuff. The reality of it is it doesn't have anything to do with their health and fitness. We're here to talk about your health and fitness and the best way to get you there, right? And so the question now becomes, is this the right time? Well, it's never the right time. The question is, are you going to take the leap and do something about this, right? And so regardless, like, what happens in the future, like none of us ever know. There's no such thing as security. It's an illusion, right? So, people want security, they seek it out, but does any of us really know what's going to happen 2 years or 3 years from now? Do any of us know where we're going to be living, what we're going to be doing, if we're going to still be alive? And the answer is no, because life has a way of just doing stuff and you just kind of go wrong for the ride. So we have the illusion of security a lot of times, and these political things in the news and on social media, they shatter the illusion of security. And so people are in a fear-based mode. So our job in that moment is to get them out of fear. Let them know they're going to be okay. Let them know that some things might change, but for the most part, most things will stay the same as they always have. And that, a year from now or 2 years from now, what's the cost of not taking action on their health and fitness, right? So if there's governments then they're cutting budgets on healthcare. Like, what are you going to do 2 years from now? You might as well start today, right? And so that's the idea behind an objection like that. So you can use the same framework, right? So let's say someone says, well, I'm worried because of everything that's going on with the country. I don't know if I want to invest right now. I got to seek to understand, why are they saying this? I'm not really sure. I say, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that? And I'm quiet. I let them explain because I don't really understand. Is this a money thing? They're worried about the money, or they're worried that gyms won't be open in a year? Like, I don't know. I don't know what they're afraid of, but I'm going to let them tell me. So I'm going to say, okay, tell me more about that. And they're going to explain what they're afraid of, right? And so basically their answer to that question is going to help me understand how to help them better, right? So if they're saying, well, with new prime ministers and tariffs and stuff, I'm just worried about my budget. Got it. So you're worried about, what kind of things in your budget? Like basic necessities, like groceries and things like that might go up and I might not be able to afford it. Okay, fair. I get it. So let me make sure I've understood you. What you're saying is that you're worried with all the political change and the way things are going right now, that you're not sure 6 months from now or a year from now that you'll be able to afford this investment right now, or afford this investment if things change. And they say, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. I get that, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. Now, is there anything besides that? Step 2, isolate. Is there anything besides that, that is preventing you from getting started? No, that's it. Okay, perfect. So things could change and, things could get more expensive. That's a possibility. But it's also a possibility that things get cheaper, right? That maybe we create new relationships with other countries and things actually, cost of things go down because we're not buying things from the US so much. Is that possible? Is it possible that the new prime minister lowers the taxes? Possible. Right. So is it possible that things change for the better? Yeah, I guess so. Okay. So we don't know what's going to happen. 6 months from now, things could change and they could be a little more expensive, but also they could be cheaper. We don't know. Let's come back to right now. So right now, is this something that you could afford? because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But let's focus on this month right now, getting you towards your goals. This is something you can afford right now. Okay, great. And if something changes, we could probably communicate about that, right? And talk about it and see if we need to change the program at all. Yeah. Okay, great. So why don't we do this? Why don't we start you on this commitment? It's a little shorter, right? And we'll get started. And if anything changes in the future, and you let me know, and we'll talk about it, and we'll see what's the change that we need to make in that time. But let's not assume things are going to get worse. Let's assume that things are going to be the same or better, and start towards your goals right now so that you're a better version of yourself 6 months from now. Right? So I'm going to do the same steps, but again, I have to address their fears, but I'm going to seek to understand and all those things first. So that's how I might handle an objection like that. Does it mean it's going to work every time? No. And the reason why is because some people are just holding on to their beliefs and are not willing to see other points of views. That's not my job. My job is to help people make the best possible decision with getting started, right? So if I make the invisible visible and I do a good job of saying, hey, like right now, let's not be afraid. Let's, take a hold of our lives. Let's take control of our lives and create the version of us we want to be in the future. That's all my job is. Whether they decide to do that or not is up to them. But that's how I would handle that objection. I would say, basically, I would make them feel understood. I would clarify it. I would isolate, and then I would help them understand that like things could also get better, and that living in fear is not the way to live. And so, why don't we take hold of the opportunity right now to live the life we want and move forward? And so that's how I might handle an objection like that. And then someone else asked, have you been in a situation where you get the vibe the person isn't telling you everything or withholding info from you? Yeah, so that has come up before. It can be a rapport thing. So I try the best that I can to build a rapport in the beginning of any consult that I do and build a good relationship with the person and let them know I'm on their side and I'm there to help. Because the more rapport you build with someone, especially early in the consultation, the more they will share with you. And so if somebody is holding things back from you, it could be a sign that you have to work a little bit harder to build better rapport so that they feel more comfortable being honest with you. And so rapport is a skill that some people are just really naturally good at. Like I had a friend that could build a rapport with a wall. Like she was so good at it. Right. And some people are not as good at it and they just have to put a little bit more work into it and building relationships with people. But it is a skill that you can learn how to do. So I would say, use the skills of building rapport, which is taking an interest in people, being vulnerable and sharing yourself, using humor, using common grounds, all these mirroring, things like that. Use all those rapport skills to build better rapport, and then people can be more honest with you. And then if you've done that and you've built good rapport and you get to objection handling and you really feel like someone's just not telling you something, just ask them, right? Again, I'm on your team. So I'm going to reinforce that. So let's say, for example, Kev's like, I feel like he's holding out on me somehow. He's not saying what needs to be said. Again, I can't make assumptions. Nothing that is not verbalized in the conversation doesn't count, right? So I need him to verbalize it. So I might even just say to him, so Kev, I get what you're saying here, but I just feel like something isn't quite right because, we're not connecting on how to solve this problem together. And I feel like, it's probably my fault, but I just want you to know that we're on the same team here. Like, I really want to see you be the best version of yourself. And I really want to help you the best way I can before you leave here today. So is there anything that you're not sharing with me or telling me? Because I really want to help you. And see what he does. Maybe he'll share it with me or maybe he won't. But that's what I would do. I'd focus on building better rapport in my consults. Or if I'm still getting that vibe, I would reinforce we're on the same team. I'm here to help. You can share with me. It's me and you against the problem, and see if he responds to that cue to share some more information. Okay. All right. Our next one here is, we had some clients lately that go on a Ozempic or go Wegovy. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to assume it's similar to Ozempic. as their best option, despite one telling me they couldn't budget for my service and now they're paying more. When it comes to their healthcare decision, focus on weight loss coaching. Okay, so weight loss coaching, people are choosing to go on Ozempic. So this process, like when is about education. Part of it's about education, which is like the results of Ozempic, and so I'm assuming you did that, but I'm going to just address it anyways, which is, Ozempic is biohacking your body. It's turning off things and turning on things that through a drug, they're manipulating their body. Biohacking your body always has a consequence. We don't know yet the long-term consequences of this type of biohacking because it just hasn't been out long enough. As it's been out for a long time, but not as it's being used now as a weight loss drug. So biology works a certain way for a reason, and we start playing around with our biology, we're going to have a problem. We don't know what that problem is. It could potentially be very dangerous, and there's no long-term studies yet on that. But I would educate people about that. That would be definitely something I would educate people about. The other thing I would educate people about is it doesn't work overly different than to like an old school like Dr. Bernstein diet or whatever the diets were back in the day, where you lost more muscle mass than you lost fat. So there's a lot of studies coming out right now where they're actually doing body fat scans of people on Ozempic or those types of drugs, and they're losing just as much muscle mass as they are losing body fat. And they're also actually losing bone density and stuff like that too. So it's actually quite dangerous and can lead to situations like bone problems and stuff. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to go into specifics on that, but that's just what I've seen in some of the research coming out. But I will talk about the whole muscle mass loss piece, is that people are going to gain the weight back as soon as they stop taking a drug, right? Or stop doing the thing. And it was the same thing with the Dr. Bernstein diet. It was the same thing with all those types of diets. There was a diet, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like a mega dose of vitamin B and really restricted diet, and you lost a lot of weight and everybody gained it back. And the reason is because a pound of muscle burns 50 to 70 calories a day at rest, right? And so that's why somebody that is 240 pounds of muscle can eat a lot more and not get fat than somebody that is 110 pounds, because their muscle mass takes calories just to survive. So just to survive, just to not lose the muscle, they need 50 calories minimum without moving to feed that muscle every single day. And so if you lose muscle mass, so if I lose 10 pounds and 3 of it is muscle mass, I'm anywhere 150 to 200 calories a day or less of metabolism without moving. And then if I move, of course, I'm losing more than that. And so what happens is when I stop taking the Ozempic and it stops doing the things that it does, and my calories go up a little bit, that not only do I gain weight, but I gain it faster because I get that 200. I've lost 200 calories in metabolism of my base metabolic rate. And so not only am I going to gain it back, but I'm gaining it faster. So if it costs me a few $1,000s, I don't know what it costs to go on Ozempic, but if it costs me a few $1,000s to go on Ozempic, yeah, it's going to work in the short term, but in the long term, right? I'm going to be gaining the weight back. So I'm spending thousands of dollars to have a short-term fix, right? Versus investing in my health and fitness as a process. Not only am I going to lose weight, but I'm going to gain skills. I'm going to learn how to work out. I'm going to learn how to eat. These are skills that I can apply for the rest of my life. So if I'm 40, the skills that Cindy teaches me about exercise and nutrition, I can apply at 50, at 60, right? I can continue to apply the things I'm learning. With Ozempic, I only get the benefits when I'm paying. I don't get any long-term or lasting benefits. So that's the education piece behind the Ozempic, right? The motivation behind something like that is not having to do the work, right? So they don't have to do the work. And so they can exercise or not exercise, but they take a drug and it helps them lose weight. And with you, they'd have to probably show up and do something. And that's a lot harder to do, to show up and do something. But it's also a lot more rewarding, right? So that's where I get into I would start to explore questions like when I'm handling that type of a objection, I'd seek to understand, okay, what makes you want to explore this Ozempic route, right? So their answer is going to tell me a lot about their motivation to do it. Is it I don't have to work out thing? Is it they just don't understand. Is it an education thing? Or whatever, right? So I'm going to understand where they're coming from. If it's an education thing, then I'd use education to overcome that. And I talk to them about the education and explore that with them. And I would ask them straight out, like, is it something you're willing to risk to lose some weight that you don't know the long-term consequences this might have on your hormones, your body, your liver, your pancreas, and your entire digestive system? Is that something you're willing to risk to lose some weight? Right? They have to answer that, not me, but I would educate them. If their concern is like more, it's like, well, it's easy. I just take the pill or I take the shot and I don't have to, actually show up to a gym and stuff like that. And, I would bring to light the invisible and the visible. And the invisible in this situation is that, nothing that comes easy is going to last. And also nothing that comes easy is good, are you going to be satisfied with? And then if you have children, what kind of example are you setting for them that, to taking the easy route versus like, stepping up and earning, your quality of life and earning your body. So I wouldn't say it in that way, but I would ask questions that explore that. And I'd be like, okay, so do you have, like, I would obviously at this point know they have kids and stuff. And it's like, is that something you're going to tell your kids about? Right. And if they say no, I would say, why not? Right. And that's going to bring a lot to light, the answer to those questions. And then, so I would use that sort of to help overcome that. Something earned is going to be a lot better for them. And, use that sort of, so hopefully that helps. But that would be sort of the angle I would take from it, would be the education piece on, that stats on it, that research, the unknown long-term consequences, the fact that it is a short-term fix, and why, and educate them on why it's a short-term fix and that it's not going to last. And the difference between like working with a coach and getting a long-term fix, but B, also information and skills that they can use for the rest of their life. So it's an investment in skills and knowledge, not spending money on potentially, something that won't last. And then when it comes to the money piece, obviously they have the money or they wouldn't be able to spend it on Ozempic. So we'd just bring that to light and make that invisible visible. It's like, okay, we were considering Ozempic. This is what it costs. I don't know what it costs, but I'm sure you've looked into it. You know what it costs. I'd say this is what it costs. This is what this costs. So obviously it's not a money concern, right? And then we talk about, showing up and doing the work and, how that's going to feel satisfying, how it's going to set a good example for their family, for their kids. And how it's going to give them long-term skills that no matter what happens for the rest of their life, they're going to have gained this knowledge and skills to help themselves. But that's how I might handle that. Okay. See what else we got here. Yeah, you could talk about, Pharaoh just brought up talking about like side effects. I don't know what the side effects are from the drug, but I'm sure there's like a million of them like there is every other drug. And then wonder if it's a trust issue, believing doctor and medical system more than themselves or a coach. Yeah, I mean, there are certain cultures and people, like it's less in North America where people are like, oh, my doctor said so, but there's cultures around the world where like the doctor is king, for sure. I know that in some countries where like, if the doctor said it, don't go against them. Again, I think that comes to education, right? Because it's like, what was Ozempic created for, right? It was not created for weight loss. It was created for people that have diabetes. So like, they're misusing this tool that was created for a certain population, right? So it was created for people that like have diabetes, that have a problem regulating their blood sugar. That's what the tool is for. And if you're not that person, you're misusing it. And if a doctor's saying, yeah, you can help you lose weight, they're right, but it's not what it was created for. Right. So I think that's more of an education thing, like just helping them understand, like, this is what this was created for. And so, if they're using it for this other reason, might there be some financial motivations behind that? Right. And helping bring that to light for the clients, because when these drugs were all created for people with diabetes, that their systems don't function properly to help them live better. And it was not created for weight loss. It's just been misused for weight loss because hey, it sells drugs. So that's a thing too. And again, it's like, when it comes to the doctor, it's again, you can make references and education on it because, a long time ago, we used to get more of this stuff too. But it's like, yeah, your doctor's there for a very important reason. And the doctor is there to provide medication when you need it. Like if you need penicillin because you have something, you need that doctor. And doctor's there to help provide surgery when you need it, right? But when it comes to, losing weight, getting fit, that's what your fitness professional is an expert in. They're not someone that prescribes drugs or does surgeries because, fat loss, weight loss, that's a fitness-based thing. And we're the professionals in this market. And, and so we're the ones that should be trusted there. And so it's about educating the clients on that. At the end of the day, is it going to work with everybody? No. Some people are still going to say, I want the easy way out, and they're going to go the other way. Our job is not necessarily to convince them not to do that. Our job is to help them make an informed decisions. That's what overcoming objections is helping people make an informed decision. So if we're dealing with someone and they know the cost of Ozempic and they know the cost of your program, and they know Ozempic was created for diabetes, not for weight loss, and they know they're going to lose muscle mass and they have a risk of gaining all the way back, and they know that there could be long-term consequences of this drug that are unknown, and they know the fact that what kind of example they're setting for their family, and they know, that they're not gaining skills or knowledge over the long term, they're just getting a short-term fix. Like if they know all that and still choose to go in that direction, it's 100% up to them, and I am okay with it. As long as I do my job, which is give them the best possible opportunity to make a great decision. And that's all we can really do. Okay, so hopefully that helps with that. Does anybody else have any objections they want to chat about? Well, I guess I'm out of time here, right? If we have a quick one, we can do another quick example. But like I said, like all the frameworks, all the objections that come up, we're just going to use that same framework for. We're just going to walk it through. So as I said at the beginning of the call, I've done, millions of dollars in face-to-face personal training sales. And how did I get good at overcoming objections? Practice, right? So I have a framework. I understand what I'm trying to do, but then the next piece was just to practice. I got myself in front of as many people as I could, and I kept practicing. And then I asked myself, how can I get better at this, right? And so after someone would leave, whether I sold them or not, didn't matter. I would critique myself and give myself self-coaching, saying is like, I could have asked this question a little bit better, or did I really seek to understand them well enough? Or, the solutions I offered, were they good solutions? Did they make sense? And that's how I got better at it. And then after you do it hundreds and hundreds of times, when someone brings up, I'm going to try this diet, or my friend's going to help me, or I can't afford it, or whatever, you don't get stressed out and you just go to the same things that you've always done because you said them 100 times already before, right? And you're just able to apply them with this new person. So having the framework, having the mindset, it's a great first start because most people are just out there handling objections all willy-nilly. So it's a great first start to understand the mindset behind it and have a framework. But the last piece or the last component is on all of you, which is to practice the framework and really just practice doing all those steps, because then it becomes a lot easier.